Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're doing well today. This is Patrick Lee. We are live. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. Excuse me, my computer was throwing up an error message. But hey, it's time for Midweek Motivation Live. I'm glad you are with me here today. We're going to be talking about a topic. Hopefully, we don't get too far off in the weeds on this one, but we're going to be talking about redemption versus regret, how to live a life of legacy and more fulfillment in life. One of the things I want to talk to you about today is the movie I Can Only Imagine. Today's show is loosely based on that movie from the past. Many of you will remember the song. We're going to come back into this. I'm going to share some things about what that did in my life and explore a couple of things. We'll take a journey down a couple of country roads into some of your life experiences and mine, and we'll talk about this when we come back. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. I hope everyone can hear me well and is doing well today. Just recently got to the office earlier today, and we're having some technical difficulties. I work in a secure building, and we have a secure door, and our fob system was down, and the doors were locked, and I couldn't get in to Studio One in the downtown First Bank Southwest Tower on the 18th floor, looking out the windows behind us. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day today. Probably going to be 90 degrees today, high 80s or something like that. It's going to be a hot one. It's nice down here, though. You can watch your dog run away for 2 days from up here. It's so flat, and you can see so far, but I'm glad to be back in the saddle talking with y'all today. People already tuning into the show. Good morning, Christine, my beautiful sister-in-law out in Bandon, Oregon on the sunny Bandon coast. I hope it's sunny today, not raining like usual. Good to see you watching today. I'm going to be talking to you today about the movie. We're going to loosely base today's show on the movie I Can Only Imagine, the story of Mercy Me, today on Midweek Motivation Live, and now on all major podcast platforms. Wherever you watch podcasts or listen to your podcast, you can listen into Midweek Motivation Live with Patrick Lee, and also you can subscribe to the Midweek Motivation Live channel on YouTube and find multiple episodes, past episodes of Midweek Motivation Live. I just got the analytics and made a post on social media yesterday. The show is increasing in downloads. We've had over 80 downloads in the last few weeks here on the show. People are starting to find the show, and that's good. We love that it's growing. Like, love, and share the show. That's the best way to help us grow. If this show has made an impact in you or has helped you in your life in the past, or you've been able to share this with a friend, that's one of the things that I just recently found out again. I was at a birthday dinner party at a fancy restaurant for a friend, and a person came in that I knew but had not met. And we don't run in the same circles, even though we're involved in some of the same industry. And they introduced this lady to me, and she was like, Patrick Lee, yes, I know you. I watch your show. I shared it today with my husband, and it made a huge impact in his life. And those are the stories that just keep me going, and every time I'm tempted to go do something else on a Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock, someone else comes up to me with a story like that and says, hey, you're making a difference in my life or in the life of those that I love. And I share the show with them, and other people have been commenting on that. So Midweek Motivation Live will continue. I think I've got over 300 shows already recorded, multiple shows on your podcast stations. I think we've uploaded over 100 of them already to the podcast channels, and many more in the past that we need to edit and get up online. Hello, Sal. Hello, Pastor Mark. Good to see you this morning as well. I love you, brother. I'm so proud of everything that's going on with you and your life, your business, and church. Sal, great chatting with you this week as well on Messenger down in South Texas. That's awesome. A lot of great people watch the show each and every week and come back and comment. I super duper appreciate that more than you will know. Like I said at the beginning of the show, today's show is sort of based on the movie I Can Only Imagine, and is inspired by the story of Mercy Me, the band, and the writing of that song. Many of you, almost everyone watching the show, has heard the song I Can Only Imagine. It's an amazing song, and it was written by the lead singer of Mercy Me, who started that band. And the movie has been out for a couple of years, and I never really got into watching the movie. I just thought, hey, it's a great Christian movie. It's based on a song. That's great. And I generally watch action movies, things like that. And I just never got around to watching I Can Only Imagine. And it's been referred to me numerous times. And my wife said, hey, I really want to watch this movie. And in my brain, here's probably where I'm going to go down this road. In my brain, I thought it's probably a movie that's going to be super emotional, like the song is. I'm going to cry. It's going to get me all up in my feels. And I just don't know if that's a road I want to go down right now. So I didn't know the story behind the movie, in my defense, but I just had an idea. If you've listened to the song, it's one of the most downloaded songs across all music charts in the history of music. Okay. When the song came out, it was #1 on the Christian charts, and then it went to rock charts, soul, pop, R&B, country charts. Everyone was requesting the song I Can Only Imagine, because it talks about loss. It talks about redemption. It talks about regret, all of these things. And what will it be like when we stand before God? And as a Christian, a follower of Jesus, Jesus Christ, those are questions that we probably all ask ourselves. So I went in to do the show today, and I watched the movie. Let me just go backstory a little bit. We bought the movie on Amazon Prime and watched it the other night. And I just have to say, as expected, or probably worse than expected, I was wrecked. And I would highly recommend, if you have still been a holdout like I was a holdout. Good morning, Lisa. This show today is all for you. I'm just kidding. I have to tell her that all of the time. This show is all about you. So many of my friends that watch the show, I'm so impressed that #1, that you like me, #2, that you listen to me, and #3, that you would listen to me weekly on my own show. So impressed, blown away, mind blown. It's all good. Appreciate that. But I did. We sat down and watched the movie at my wife's request, and we made some popcorn, homemade popcorn. We sat down and watched I Can Only Imagine. And I have to confess, it wrecked me. And the funny thing about it is, I'm not sure why, but it still wrecked me. And if you have not watched the movie, I would highly recommend that you go watch the movie. It's going to tell you a lot about yourself, probably a lot about some of your friends, things that they have been through, the roads they have gone down. And I believe that it will help you. And the story is a positive story. The first point I want to make about this going into the movie, the first part of the topic is innocence lost. In the beginning of the story, we meet young Bart Millard. And it's kind of funny, where I grew up in Oregon, on the Oregon coast, right about a half a mile down the highway from my house, there is a lake called Bradley Lake. And on the shores of that lake, we used to go out there and run around, and I couldn't swim at the time, but we played at the lake and in the creek and on the sand dunes around the lake. And there was a school for wayward children called the Millard School. And it's funny that I was reminded about that, because it was here in Amarillo, Texas. We have Boys Ranch and Girls Town, and there are many young boys that have troubled lives, troubled past. They come from broken homes, and they end up going to live at Boys Ranch, or the girls go to Boys Town. And at the Millard School, it was like a military prep school, but it was also for wayward and troubled kids, kids with a bad past or a broken family. And I was reminded that. And here we see young Bart Millard, and he's living in a broken family. His father had lost all of his hopes of being a football player. He got injured, I think, playing college ball, and he turned into an abusive father. He beat Bart's mother, and at a very young age, he started beating Bart as well. Now, Bart Millard is the young man that grows up to be the lead singer of Mercy Me and writes the song I Can Only Imagine. But you can imagine growing up in a troubled childhood like that, how it would affect a young mind, how so many fears, so many thoughts of insecurity would come into a kid like that. And he was a little overweight. He was not a popular kid in school. His mother took him to a church camp to get him out of the house at a young age. And he ended up meeting a young girl there at camp that he didn't really know, but she knew him and was very, very struck on him, had met him at school and actually liked him. And that starts a story of a budding romance between him and this young girl. It doesn't it? Yeah. Thanks, Larry. The Millard School, that academy brings back some great memories, doesn't it? Yeah. Larry, great friend of mine, grew up right up the road as well from the Millard Academy. And we used to get ran off if we got too close to that place. The people would come out and yell at us and tell us to get away from their kids or get away from their school, where they didn't want any of the local riffraff hanging out with their riffraff. I guess that's the best way for me to say it. You know what I mean? So that was always funny. But Bart was beaten severely by his dad at a young age. And in my hometown where I grew up, I had friends that were beaten. I did not grow up in a family like that. Thank you, Jesus. Praise the good Lord. I was not raised in a family like that. We were Pentecostal kids, and we did get our share of spankings. Hallelujah. They're what molded me into the man that I am today. And I think that we should bring spanking back. Please bring spanking back. Correct your children. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. And it doesn't mean beat your children, but it does mean correct your children to the point that that it straightens them out and they walk down a correct path. So don't ever get that wrong. I am not an advocate for beating your children. I am highly an advocate for correction of your children. And I believe that spanking is one of those things. I said it here on Midweek Motivation Live. Let the chips fall where they may. It worked for me. I've seen it work for countless other children. Most people of my age would all probably agree, hey, it's time to bring spankings back. Put them in school, put them back in the household, and leave the parents alone. Let them spank their kids. So amen. Larry says amen. So yeah, it worked for me. It'll work for your children too, believe it or not. And after a good bout of correction, that child will come back and love on you and love you all the more for taking the time to correct them and set them on a path. But Bart, unfortunately, was beaten by his father. His father took out all of his angers and frustrations on Bart. So Bart at one point decided that he would throw himself into football like his dad to try to gain some love from his dad or some recognition from his dad. And when his dad told him that he was weak and he just quit too soon and he never tried hard enough, he got into this incredible, well, Lisa, you needed it. Lisa got a spanking daily. I got one weekly, almost daily sometimes. I'm sure you needed it, friend. So Bart, in the movie, Bart gets into football and starts gaining some level of success in sports and gets injured, breaks, I think, both legs, and he will never play football again. And his father is so disappointed. And Bart has to find something else to do. That innocence of the young child is lost, and now he's on the road to another part of his life, another season in his life. So Bart gets coerced into, railroaded into joining Glee Club, which is choir. In high school, I sang in the choir. I sang in church. A lot of my friends sang in choir. And I was also a wrestler. My senior year, I played football for a while, and I found out I could go to work and make money, and girls liked money. Some girls liked the football players, but a lot of the football players went on to do nothing with their lives. And a lot of kids that went out and got a job at a young age went on to achieve some level of financial success in their life. And there's a lot to be said for that as well. So I went out and got a job about halfway through my senior year. I went back to work instead of playing football, and I made a lot more money and had a lot more fun earning my own income at that age. But I also sang in the choir, and I was a singer. And maybe this has a little bit to do with some of why this movie had an effect on me. But Bart gets wheeled into choir in his wheelchair with his broken legs because he has to have an elective. It's the only elective class that's not full. He can't get into any other class. So they bring him in to be the technology guy. And he's always listened to music, kind of like Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy, Chris Pratt, right? He's always listening to music in a little Walkman or something. And Bart finds out that he loves technology and music and that he can sing. And he starts singing, and he ends up getting accolades. He's afraid to sing in front of his father or let his father know that he's singing in the choir. He ends up getting the lead part in Oklahoma, the musical, and he doesn't even invite his father because he's afraid of how his father will react. How many of you have a parent or someone that you look up to that has been so abusive to you in the past that you're afraid to share with them the things that you're into, the things that you like and love? So as he goes on through that, he does a great job. He becomes a highly recognized singer. And because of another fight with his father over this, he ends up leaving after school, and he goes out on the road. He leaves home, and he meets up with a bunch of guys, and they start a band. Now, when Bart was a young boy, he would go to his Nana's house, his grandmother's house, and do odd jobs and do things for her. And one of her favorite things to say was "Mercy Me." And that's actually how they named the band, was his grandmother, who had so much faith and believe in him. It was a natural thing for them to do, to name the band "Mercy Me." And they went out on the road. They got an old bus and they toured around a little bit, and they gained a little bit of notoriety in their area. But they mainly wrote songs that no one really knew, or they sang covers of other songs. They sang other people's music. They did things that other people had created. And they struggled early on in that. And then they ended up meeting a music producer that produced for Audio Adrenaline and some other big Christian bands. So as they're doing this, trying to achieve some level of success, there's one scene in the movie where they've sang all of their songs, and this group, a couple of hundred kids, is excited. But it's like the show's over. They're like, "Hey, we've sang all of our songs." And then for some reason, Bart starts sharing to calm the crowd down. Bart starts sharing from his heart some of his past on pain and abuse. And the crowd calms down and starts to listen. And he starts to talk about redemption, and that there is a God in heaven that loves you no matter where you are and no matter what struggles you're going through or where you've been in life. And he starts to share his faith. And this producer is in the back of the crowd, up in the balcony, listening, watching this young band to see, if they've got the stuff, if they've got what it takes maybe for him to take them on as a client and help this young struggling band achieve success. And what he finds out is that Bart has this gift for sharing from his heart and causing other people to listen. And they want to hear the story of redemption that he has to tell. And it's a pretty powerful scene. And he ends up singing a Keith Green song. Many of you that have been in the faith movement for a while may remember Keith Green, but he starts to sing "Oh Lord, You're Beautiful" by Keith Green, and the band sort of plays in behind him, and they pick up the notes and they play, and it's a very powerful moment. But that moment caused that producer to join them on the road and to start traveling with them and helping them. But Bart continued to battle with these thoughts of these regrets of his past, the life that he's come from, what direction he needs to go in his life. And he makes a lot of mistakes. He gets offended and runs off his girlfriend who absolutely loves him. He has that huge fight with his father. He's never gone home to talk to his father to try to receive any kind of explanation for why his father was the way he was, why his mother left them at a young age. And he battled with all this hatred, all this anger, all of this conflict in his mind. And they end up coming to a head. The movie kind of comes to a head in the middle. There's this major climactic moment where the producer puts them in front of, they write a couple more songs and they get to Nashville and they sing for a bunch of record producers, and all 5 of them unanimously tell him that he does not have what it takes to be successful in music. And they're pretty much a good road band, and that's about it. They'll never achieve any level of fame. And Bart gets mad and he quits and he leaves the band and he goes home. His producer finds him sulking in the back room before he leaves and has the heart-to-heart talk with him. And that producer is played by Trace Adkins, a powerful singer, you know, megastar in country music, powerful voice. And he tells him that he has what it takes and it's all inside of him, but he's got to find a way to go deal with the abuse of his past. So Bart goes home and has a head-to-head argument with his dad, talks about the past, tries to share some of his faith, and it's powerful. I recommend that you watch it. I can't recommend high enough that you watch it. And these were the moments I sort of told you about that just wrecked me. And I still don't know why, because I had friends that were raised in families like that. I've sat in the living room at a friend's house where the father was drunk, smoking Camel cigarettes on a couch. And they used to have those big 5-pound crystal ashtrays on the coffee table in homes of, you know, my parents didn't smoke, but other people that smoked had these big ashtrays everywhere. And they would just have a mound of cigarette butts in there. And he turned around and told a friend of mine to do something. And we're 16 years old and we had plans. We're fixing to head out the door, go to the beach or go ride bikes or go do something. And the dad says, "No, you're going to stay in the house. It's spring cleaning day and we're going to clean house." And my friend's like, "No, Dad, we're sorry. See you. We're out of here." And he throws that ashtray across the room at him and knocks a hole in the wall. Almost hit him. Could have done serious damage because of that kind of an attitude, those kind of explosive emotions of anger and violence. And that was a kind of a household that friend was raised in, with the alcoholism and abandonment of parents. I've had other parents that were that way, that were so abusive to their children. And these are just stories, but they're all true. I had a great friend whose sister had a bunch of kids, and her boyfriend that was trying to help her raise these kids was so abusive. If the kid they had a hole in the drywall in the corner of the living room, and around this hole about 2 inches long was just this 10-inch circle of just filth on that wall. And anytime a kid cried or back talked or said anything out of line, they had to go stand with their nose in that hole as they cried, and they would get beatings and whippings. And these are the kind of things, and the tears and the snot and the saliva would be marked all around that filthy hole on the wall. These are the kind of things that we thank Jesus for, that was not my life. But these were the things, the experience that I saw other kids have. And as I'm watching this movie and seeing this happen to young Bart Millard as well, and the things he went through as a young man now, a college age person, he's having to come to grips with these things. And he has this meeting with his dad. And during the time he's been on the road touring and singing in the past, his dad finds out that he has cancer. I'm spoiling the movie for you. I want you to watch it, but the dad has cancer. He's writing letters to Bart, and Bart's ignoring him because of his anger, because of that past, the beatings, the life that he's come from. And he throws them away every time he gets a letter from his dad. But he finds out during this time another big fight with his dad. He goes to leave and his motorcycle won't start, and he gets in his dad's truck, and he's looking for the keys, and he pulls down the visor, and there's a letter from the hospital telling him that he has cancer. And Larry, the movie is I Can Only Imagine, the story of the band Mercy Me. It's available on Apple Music or Apple Prime, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and it's available for rent in multiple places. It's an incredible story. He finds out his dad has cancer. So no matter what, he makes the decision that he needs to find a way to forgive his father and also find forgiveness for himself. So they find a way to work through many of the things, through conversations, through a lot of prayer, and they end up learning to forgive each other. The father forgiving Bart, the Bart forgiving the father for the many failures that the father experienced. It's powerful. You'll need some Kleenex. I mean, there's some of you tough guys. Larry, you're a tough guy. It won't wreck you, but you know, some of you guys will need some Kleenex. It's just a powerful story of redemption. And no matter what you're going through in your life, the things that you have gone through in your past, every one of you needs to know that whether that parent ever forgives you or you ever forgive that parent, that boss, that partner, that spouse, maybe that puts you through these kinds of abuse, caused you to doubt who you are as a person, caused you to doubt that you have value to anyone else. Many of you are or have been involved in narcissistic relationships with people, and you have been taught that you are not worth anything to anyone but that person you're in that relationship with. And you will stay there and put up with that abuse because you believe no one else will want you if you leave them. And that's one of the narcissist's key weapons. They beat you down so much to where you will never. Larry's gotten pretty soft. That's why we're friends, brother. It's all good. You don't believe anyone else can ever love you because of those types of abuse. But Bart does end up finding a way to forgive his father, and it's only through the power of the love of Christ. In the same manner that Christ has forgiven us for our faults and our failures and our sin, we are called to forgive those who have abused us, who have committed those atrocious sins against us. So finding forgiveness is a very powerful part of a theme of the movie, and I do highly recommend it. But during this moment, he learns a lot of lessons in his mind as he's developing this relationship with his dad over the next few months that he lives. And they end up becoming best friends. He and his father do become best friends. His father has accepted Christ. They go to church together. His father is very ill on oxygen. doesn't have long to live, but the last few months that they spend together are some of the best months of Bart's life. He calls the girlfriend that he had offended, and over the course of time, she accepts him back. But when his dad does eventually die a few months later, Bart goes back to the band, and they're on the bus, and they've got some dates, and they're going to go sing some songs. And as he's laying on the bus, the inspiration comes to him to write the song, I Can Only Imagine. He literally pins the words to this song in about 10 minutes, the words and the music, and then awakens the band to share it with him to work out the tune. They record the tune, and then they give it to their manager, who comes back and has told Bart in the beginning that when Bart opens his soul, the magic happens, that the love of Christ comes through. And this song is the culmination of that battle with the Father, and Bart's journey towards forgiveness. And the song is born. The redemption story that's told in the song, the emotion that comes through the song that hits the heart of nearly everyone that listens to the song comes through. And it's the same moment Bart had with that crowd when he started singing Keith Green songs about God and how beautiful he is and how his faith abounds towards us. And this is the kind of song that can only be born out of the Spirit of God. They bring the song to Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant. Amy Grant wants to record the song. They give the song to Amy Grant to record on a comeback tour, and Amy ends up calling Bart on stage at the concert and tells him she can't sing the song. It's his song, and he needs to sing it for the people. And he does, and it becomes an immediate overnight success. The crowd goes wild. The song goes on to achieve the status that it has, one of the most requested, downloaded, and played songs in the history of music. I was at church 20 years ago singing in the choir. This is a neat story. I sang in the choir. I grew up singing in church. And actually, a lot of people don't know this. I was awarded 2 scholarships to a West Coast Christian College for vocal performance through the Church of God nationwide Pentecostal Church Association that I was associated with. 2 scholarships to go to college for vocal solo and vocal duet with the pastor's daughter I used to travel and sing with. But so music has always been a part of my life, and this may be something, have a little bit about what it meant to me. But we had just finished choir practice. Pat Brown, our pastor's brother at the time, was one of my best friends, and we had finished choir practice and music practice for the following week's services. And we had a guy in the choir that sang with me, and long hair, Hispanic fella, amazing, loved Jesus, big guy. And he goes, "Hey man, come out to my car. I want to play you this song. You guys have got to hear this song. It's the latest song on the road by this on the radio by this new band." And myself and Patrick Brown, we go out to listen to the song, and it's I Can Only Imagine by MercyMe. And this was 20 years ago. And we all 3 listened to it on his cassette deck in his little pickup like 3 times. And we're grown men, and we stood in the parking lot and wept at the story of redemption in the song, the emotion that's impacted through the song, the story of a great hope that we have in Christ. It's an amazing story that is the reason that I believe so many of us follow Christ, we have accepted his death, the blood he shed for our sins, and that becomes the great hope that we have for our own future. We do have this great hope that when we go on to our reward with Christ, when we leave this earth, that we will be with those who have gone on before us, our friends and loved ones, those that we miss terribly while we're here on this planet. I had a great relationship with my dad, but for 30 years, I lived in Texas. He lived in Oregon. He didn't like to talk on the phone, and neither did I. So when we did talk a few times a year, it was a short conversation. I love you. How are you doing? I'm great. I love you too, son. How are you doing? It looks like you're doing well. Good to hear from you. Call your mother more often. She misses you. These were the kind of conversations I would have with my dad. And we would ask about our siblings and everything else, what's going on in the family. And it was usually a short conversation, and he would hand the phone back to your mother. Well, your mother wants to talk to you again before we hang up. Good talking to you. And those were most of our conversations. I called my dad from time to time for advice, but not that often. Literally, I knew he didn't like to talk on the phone. And I therefore ended up growing up mostly on my own and seeking out mentors in my life for myself. And so I think that's probably why this movie wrecked me a little bit, was because of that redemption story and the hope that Bart has of being reunited with his father in heaven when he dies, and that renewed love that they shared for each other before he passed. I was able to go out and visit with my dad a few times the last few years before he passed away, and was able to see him 2 weeks before he passed away of cancer at the very beginning of 2020, January of 2020. And I have this great hope that I will be reunited with my father in heaven and all of my loved ones as well. But I don't have this legacy of this incredible song, I Can Only Imagine. But in my mind, and maybe in your mind too, you have these kind of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And I would just like to tell you to embrace those. I asked my daughter the other day at church, and she got a little shocked, and I thought I might have offended her, and that wasn't my intent. But I asked her at that point, when she's a worship leader at church, and I just asked her when she was going to start writing songs. And it was because of, at a young age, when I was a teenager and a young adult, I came across a folder as I was going through things that we had cleaned out of my mom's house when my dad passed away, and we moved my mother into a nursing home. And I had to go through all of the memories, the files, the filing cabinets, the boxes of stacks of papers and things, records that they had. And I came across a manila envelope full of songs that I had written as a young man. I used to fancy myself a songwriter, and I wrote a lot of songs back then. And my daughter, Candace, is so much like me. I would assume that in her mind that God has given her a song as well. And she's like, that's not fair to ask me that question. And I'm like, I love you. I'm just saying, has God given you any songs? And that was literally the only question about that. But I would imagine that God may have given you a song. And we've talked about this on the show in the past. Maybe there's a book you're supposed to write. Maybe there's a story of redemption and hope that you need to share with someone else. What kind of a story can you only imagine would change someone's life? This song has been an encouragement to so many people. And now the movie is re-encouraging others, maybe who have not heard the song or didn't know the story. I know it's certainly given me a new spirit of encouragement, and I believe that it can you too. If you have not watched the movie, I highly recommend it. I Can Only Imagine is the name of the movie. It's the story of Mercy Me. But take all of these lessons, the stories of the regret, the things that you have experienced in your life, and learn how to get the revelation out of that and say, what is God teaching me as I've gone through this, right? Everything in life happens for you, not to you. What kind of lesson can I learn from that? And then how can I find a way to forgive the person maybe responsible for that hurt, that letdown, that pain they've caused in my life? As Christ has forgiven me, shouldn't I in turn forgive them as well? Forgiveness is a very powerful tool. It sets you free from the prison, not them. And then learn that through that forgiveness, that there is a road to redemption and restoration of relationships, and let that be your path forward. Hey guys, I love you. I hope the show has helped you today. Like I've said before, like, love, and share the show. As I said at the beginning of the show, today's show is based on the movie I Can Only Imagine, and is inspired by the story of Mercy Me, the band, and Bart Millard. Powerful movie. Of course, it's a great song. It's probably been played at a million funerals by now because it is such a powerful song. We all have that hope that we will be reunited with our loved ones in heaven when we pass from this life into the next. Remember, courage begins at the end of your comfort zone. Get a little uncomfortable today. Learn how to forgive some people. Until next time, this has been Patrick Lee with Midweek Motivation Live. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.